The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink when Emma finally gathered the courage to approach him. She'd been watching him for weeks now, the quiet single dad who lived next door, always polite but distant, his eyes carrying a sadness she recognized all too well. What happened that evening would change both their lives forever, in ways neither could have imagined. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected connection and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us love can find us when we least expect it. Jack Sullivan hadn't planned on moving to the small coastal town of Cedar Cove. At 42, starting over wasn't part of his life plan, but then again, neither was losing his wife to cancer and becoming a single father to their 12-year-old daughter, Lily. The beachfront rental was supposed to be temporary, just a place to heal, to figure out what came next. The last thing he expected was to find himself drawn to the woman next door. Emma Chen had lived in Cedar Cove her entire life. At 38, she'd built a successful career as a marine biologist, studying the delicate ecosystems of the coastline she called home. After a devastating divorce 3 years ago, she'd thrown herself into her work, finding solace in the predictable patterns of the tides and the creatures that inhabited them. Romance was the furthest thing from her mind, until the Sullivan family moved in next door. Their first real interaction happened on a Tuesday afternoon in early June. Jack had been sitting on the beach, watching Lily splash in the waves while he tried to focus on the stack of manuscripts he needed to review. As a freelance editor, he could work from anywhere, which had made the move possible. But concentration had been elusive lately, his thoughts constantly drifting to the past, to memories of Sarah and the life they'd built together. "Beautiful day," a voice said, startling him from his thoughts. Jack looked up to see his neighbor standing beside his beach chair, wearing a modest blue bikini covered partially by a sheer wrap. He'd seen her around, of course, their decks practically touched, but they'd never spoken beyond polite nods and brief hellos. "It is," he agreed, quickly averting his eyes back to his laptop. He wasn't ready for this, for conversation, for connection, for noticing how the sunlight caught in her dark hair or how her smile reached all the way to her eyes. Emma hesitated, then gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Mind if I join you? I've been cooped up in my lab all week, and I promised myself some vitamin D today." Jack nodded, shifting slightly to make room. He noticed Lily looking over curiously from the water's edge, a small smile playing on her lips. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen from her in months. As Emma settled into the chair, Jack found his gaze inadvertently dropping to her figure before quickly snapping back up. She caught him, raising an eyebrow. "Eyes are up here," she said, but there was a hint of amusement in her voice rather than offense. Jack felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I'm sorry, he stammered, then surprised himself with his response. "You wore that bikini on purpose, though, didn't you?" For a moment, Emma looked shocked, and Jack immediately regretted his words. But then she burst out laughing, a genuine, full-bodied laugh that seemed to release something tight in his chest. "Fair enough," she conceded. "Though I wasn't exactly planning on an audience. Just trying to feel like myself again." There was something vulnerable in her admission that resonated with him. "I know that feeling," Jack said quietly. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching Lily collect shells along the shoreline. Eventually, Emma spoke again. "I've seen you two around. You moved in about a month ago?" 5 weeks, Jack confirmed. "Still feels temporary, though. Like we're just visiting." Emma nodded. "It takes time for a place to feel like home." She paused. "I'm Emma, by the way. Emma Chen. Jack Sullivan. And that's my daughter, Lily. She seems like a great kid." Jack smiled faintly. "She is. She's been through a lot, though. We both have." Emma seemed to understand what he wasn't saying. "Loss has a way of reshaping everything," she said softly. Jack looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw recognition in her eyes, not pity, but understanding. Yes, he said simply. It does. That first conversation opened a door between them. Over the next few weeks, they fell into an easy pattern. Emma would join them on the beach in the evenings, sometimes bringing dinner from the local seafood shack or homemade cookies that made Lily's eyes light up. Jack found himself looking forward to these moments, even as guilt gnawed at him for feeling anything resembling happiness. One evening, as Lily built an elaborate sandcastle with architectural precision, Emma nudged Jack's shoulder. "You know, it's okay to smile sometimes," she said. "I've been watching you fight it for weeks now." Jack sighed. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been there," Emma replied. "After my divorce, I felt guilty every time I laughed. Like I was betraying the life I thought I'd have." "It's different," Jack said, his voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "Your ex is still alive." Emma was quiet for a moment. "True. But loss is loss, Jack. And Sarah wouldn't want you punishing yourself for continuing to live." Jack stiffened. "You don't know what Sarah would want." "You're right, I don't," Emma conceded. "But I know what it's like to watch someone I care about struggle with allowing themselves joy." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Jack wasn't ready to examine what she meant by "someone I care about," or why his heart had quickened at hearing it. "Lily needs stability right now," he said instead. "Not complications." Emma's gaze drifted to where Lily was carefully placing shells along the walls of her sandcastle. "Sometimes I think kids understand more about resilience than we give them credit for." Before Jack could respond, Lily called out, "Dad. Emma. Come see my castle before the tide gets it." They walked over together, and Jack felt Emma's hand brush against his. Accidentally, he told himself, even as he fought the urge to reach for it. July brought scorching temperatures and crowds of tourists to Cedar Cove's beaches. Jack and Lily retreated to early mornings and late evenings for their beach time, and Emma adjusted her schedule to join them when she could. Jack found himself watching the clock on days when Emma had mentioned she might stop by, and chiding himself for his eagerness. One particularly warm evening, Emma arrived at their usual spot with a picnic basket and a bottle of wine. "I thought we could celebrate," she announced, setting down the basket. "Celebrate what?" Lily asked, looking up from her book. "The successful release of our rehabilitated sea turtle," Emma explained. "Remember I told you about Marnie? The loggerhead with the injured flipper? She's back in the ocean as of this morning." Lily's face lit up. "That's awesome. Did she swim away fast?" "Like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment," Emma said, smiling. Which, in a way, she had been. Jack watched the exchange, struck by how naturally Emma had become part of their lives. Lily had been withdrawn for so long after Sarah's death, speaking only when necessary, her grief a tangible thing that seemed to weigh down her small shoulders. But with Emma, she was animated, curious, alive in a way Jack had feared might be lost forever. As they spread out the picnic, grilled shrimp, crusty bread, a summer salad, and chocolate-dipped strawberries for dessert, Jack found himself studying Emma's profile against the setting sun. She'd pulled her hair back in a loose bun, tendrils escaping to frame her face. She wore a simple sundress over her swimsuit, nothing fancy, yet Jack couldn't remember the last time he'd seen someone so beautiful. The thought startled him, and he looked away quickly, focusing instead on pouring wine into the plastic cups Emma had brought. "None for me, thanks," Emma said when he offered her a cup. "I'm driving back to the lab later to check on our newest patient, a pelican with fishing line wrapped around its wing." "You really love what you do, don't you?" Jack observed. Emma nodded. "The ocean has always been my constant. Even when everything else fell apart, it was still there, following the same rhythms, hiding the same mysteries." "I wish I had something like that," Jack admitted. "My work is just work now. I used to love it." Sarah and I would stay up late discussing manuscripts, debating character motivations, plot twists. Now I just go through the motions. Maybe you need a new perspective, Emma suggested. Or maybe you just need time. Dad used to write his own stories, Lily piped up, surprising both adults. Mom said he was going to be a famous author someday. Jack felt his chest tighten. That was a long time ago, Lil. You never told me you were a writer, Emma said softly. I'm not. Not anymore. Jack took a sip of wine, hoping to end the conversation. But Emma wasn't so easily deterred. What did you write? Jack sighed, recognizing the determined look in her eyes. Literary fiction, mostly. I had a few short stories published in small journals. Nothing major. He was writing a novel when Mom got sick, Lily added, her voice small but steady. About a man who could see how much time people had left to live. Jack stared at his daughter, shocked that she remembered. He'd abandoned the manuscript the day of Sarah's diagnosis, unable to face the cruel irony of his fictional premise becoming his reality. That sounds fascinating, Emma said, her eyes on Jack. What happened to the manuscript? It's still on my laptop, Jack admitted. But I haven't opened that file in 3 years. Maybe someday, Emma said, not pushing further. Jack nodded, grateful for her understanding. As the conversation shifted to lighter topics, he found himself wondering what Sarah would think of Emma, this woman who had somehow slipped past his defenses and was slowly, carefully, helping both him and Lily remember how to live again. August brought a hurricane warning to Cedar Cove. As a precaution, residents in beachfront properties were advised to evacuate inland. Jack was packing essentials into the car when Emma appeared on his deck, rain already beginning to fall. Where are you two heading? She asked, hair whipping around her face in the strengthening wind. The evacuation center at the high school, Jack replied. You? Emma made a face. I was hoping to avoid that. I have a friend with a house in the hills, but she's not answering her phone. Jack hesitated only briefly. Come with us. We can find a hotel further inland. Relief washed over Emma's features. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. I'm sure, Jack said, surprised by how certain he felt. Besides, Lily would never forgive me if I left you behind. 20 minutes later, they were in Jack's SUV, driving away from the coast as the storm gathered strength behind them. Lily was unusually quiet in the back seat, clutching the stuffed otter Emma had given her after their sea turtle celebration. You okay back there, Lil? Jack asked, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Lily nodded, but her knuckles were white around the otter. Just thinking about our house. It'll be fine, Jack assured her, though he wasn't entirely convinced. These old beach houses have weathered plenty of storms. But all of Mom's things are there, Lily whispered. Jack felt his heart crack. He'd packed Sarah's photo albums and the memory box they'd made together during her final months, but there were countless other items, her favorite coffee mug, the quilt her grandmother had made, the collection of seashells she'd gathered during their honeymoon. Emma turned in her seat to face Lily. I know it's scary, she said gently. But remember what we talked about with the sea turtles? How they always find their way back to the same beach, no matter how far they travel. Lily nodded slowly. Home is like that, Emma continued. Even if the physical place changes, the feeling of home stays with you. Your mom is part of that feeling, and nothing can wash that away. Jack caught Emma's eye as she turned back around, a silent thank you passing between them. She reached over and squeezed his hand briefly, and he found himself holding on longer than necessary. They found a hotel room about 40 miles inland, the last available room, with 2 queen beds. Jack insisted Emma take one while he and Lily shared the other. As the storm raged outside, they ordered pizza and watched movies on the hotel TV, creating a bubble of normalcy in the midst of chaos. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jack and Emma sat on the small balcony, watching the rain. "Thank you," Jack said quietly. "For what you said to Lily earlier. About home." Emma smiled faintly. "I meant it. Home isn't just a place." "I'm starting to understand that," Jack admitted. "For a long time after Sarah died, I felt untethered. Like we were just drifting. That's why we moved to Cedar Cove. I thought a change of scenery might help." "Has it?" Emma asked. Jack looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the gentle curve of her cheek, the kindness in her eyes, the strength in her posture. "Yes," he said simply. "But not because of the scenery." Emma's breath caught, and for a moment, Jack thought he might have crossed a line. But then she smiled, a small, hopeful smile that made his heart race. "Jack," she began, but whatever she was going to say was interrupted by a particularly loud crack of thunder that shook the building. Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible, and Jack moved instinctively to check on her. By the time he returned to the balcony, the moment had passed, but something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that could no longer be ignored. They returned to Cedar Cove 2 days later to find their houses largely intact, though Emma's deck had partially collapsed, and both properties were littered with debris. The beach had been transformed, the familiar landscape altered by the storm's fury. As they stood surveying the damage, Lily tugged on Jack's sleeve. "Dad, can Emma stay with us until her deck is fixed? It's not safe for her to use it." Jack glanced at Emma, who looked embarrassed. "I'm sure Emma would prefer her own space, Lil." "Actually," Emma said hesitantly, "my sliding door was damaged too. The repair company said it might be a week before they can get to it, with all the storm damage in the area." "Then it's settled," Lily declared with unexpected authority. "Emma's staying with us." And so Emma moved into their guest room, bringing with her a small suitcase and her laptop. The arrangement was meant to be temporary, practical, but as days passed, Jack found himself dreading the moment when she would leave. They fell into a comfortable routine. Emma would make coffee in the mornings before heading to the Marine Center, leaving a pot for Jack who worked from home. Jack would prepare dinner, and Emma would help Lily with her science homework in the evenings. They would walk on the beach together, marveling at how quickly nature was reclaiming and reshaping the coastline after the storm. One evening, about a week into this arrangement, Jack was washing dishes when he overheard Lily and Emma talking in the living room. "Do you think my dad is happy?" Lily was asking, her voice small but clear. Jack froze, the plate in his hands dripping suds onto the floor. "I think," Emma replied carefully, "that your dad loves you very much and wants to be happy for you." "But what about for himself?" Lily persisted. "Mom told me before she died that I needed to make sure Dad didn't forget how to be happy. But I don't know how to do that." Jack's heart constricted painfully in his chest. He hadn't known about this final conversation between Sarah and Lily, this burden his wife had inadvertently placed on their daughter's shoulders. "Oh, Lily," Emma said, and Jack could hear the emotion in her voice. "That's not your responsibility. Your mom was worried about your dad because she loved him, but she wouldn't want you to feel like his happiness is your job." "But I want him to be happy," Lily insisted. "And he smiles more when you're around. I've been counting." Jack nearly dropped the plate. Had he been so transparent? "Your dad is finding his way," Emma said gently. "Grief isn't something you just get over, it changes shape, becomes part of you. But it doesn't have to be the only thing." "Do you like my dad?" Lily asked bluntly, in that way only children can. There was a pause, and Jack found himself holding his